Hey friends, welcome to Facebook Live from the farm. It's Lisa Mason Ziegler, and as you can see, I'm standing here. Maybe you can't see. I am standing in my grow room, and this has been a week of seed starting everything. I'm talking about seed starting everywhere because we're just being inundated with lots of questions, and from folks that are just learning, from those of us that are struggling with a particular seed. And so I'm kind of continuing that conversation on here today. And so if we've never met before, you can learn more about me and our business, The Gardener's Workshop, over at thegardenersworkshop.com. We are basically an online garden shop and a learning center, and our learning center encompasses a lot. There is free content, there is paid courses. It just all depends on what you're looking for. Our niche is that when I began flower farming in 1998, what has developed is that we just offer the things that I use, the same tools. I sell the same seeds that I also use, along with my instructions on how we find best to do that. And so I really invite you to kind of check that out over there. And so, the story goes, we are kind of hot and heavy into seed starting. And unlike what a lot of people tend to think, it's really for us. I'm in the mid-Atlantic, just to give you a place to reference. I'm in the mid-Atlantic. I'm in southeastern Virginia. We are in what is known as winter hardiness zone 7B, 8A. We teeter back and forth. And so my last spring frost historically is mid-April-ish. So we are way too early to be thinking about starting some warm season tender annuals, stuff like zinnias and sunflowers and coxcomb and tomatoes and basil. We have way too long before that. But we are hot and heavy in starting cool season stuff. And that is, my book, Cool Flowers, tells you all about the concept, which I didn't make that up. Our grandmas used to do this. It kind of explains the concept, features 30 flowers, tells you a lot of the different steps that we have just taken to the next level. The book was actually published, can y'all believe this? 2014. That means, so that's like 8 years ago. I just still can't even believe that, which meant I was writing it 10 years ago. And that is just blowing my mind. So we have kind of taken all those precepts that are in that book and just exploited it to all kinds of ways, right? And we've added additional flowers that I've discovered are cool season hardy annuals, because you know what? I still haven't found it written anywhere. Who are the cool season hardy annuals? Because it's not just flowers. There are also vegetables, y'all. And it is like, lettuce and broccoli and cauliflower and radishes and kale and all those greens, they're all also cool season hardy annuals. So it's just really a great group of flowers and vegetables to get to know. And I don't know about you guys, but I struggled for years before I kind of connected all the dots. I can remember getting a pack of lettuce and it's saying, sow as soon as the soil can be worked in spring. Well, who knew what that meant? I might have known what that meant today as a flower farmer and a commercial grower after 24 years or however long it's been. But back as a novice person, I had no clue about that. So that's one of the key markers to me when I get a new seed packet or if I'm investigating. And if the seed packet says, sow in spring as soon as the soil can be worked, that's your first red flag. This might be a cool season hardy annual. So I see that folks are commenting with the sunflower emoji, and we love that. If you are a student of any of our online courses, on demand or schools, any of our schools, we love it when y'all comment with the sunflower emoji. That just identifies you to me as well as to everybody else that you were involved in some of our courses. So the number one thing I want to say today, or number one that I want to say, is that it's still too early for most of us to start warm season stuff. If you've already started some tomatoes or, zinnias or sunflowers, friend, they're going to just grow into a really struggling plant really, really quickly because it's just way too early. And I'm going to sneeze, y'all. Excuse me. And there will be more to come now. So, one of the best discoveries for me when I found out about cool season hardy annuals, it's like, okay, during this time of January and February, when we're just desperate for something to start and do and engage with for gardening, and it's still like, 20 degrees outside or 6 degrees or whatever, you're experiencing right now, the cool season hardy annuals are who are our friends at this time, y'all. And I have often said that, when I wrote the book Cool Flowers, I can remember when I would be doing programs and I'm trying to help people to understand that while they're annuals, but they're cool season hardy annuals, meaning they will take cool to cold temperatures. What I would love to say to folks is that, while everybody else is standing at the door clutching their little seed packet of zinnias, just waiting for it to get warm enough to plant them, we are knee deep in cool flowers. And there is nothing truer than that statement. I can remember that when we first started really embarking on and growing more and more cool flowers and experimenting and seeing what worked well for us in our, region here, as well as, I'm 100% field grower, y'all. I don't do anything indoors. I don't have any hooper greenhouses, right? That, at the end of April, the goal was always to have a ton of flowers for Mother's Day, right? I can remember us just being knee deep in May in flowers. Well, that was just when the warm season tender annuals were being planted out, and our peonies sometimes are just kind of coming out, are kind of on their way either in high season or on their way out. So cool flowers really revolutionized our life. And, when you start experimenting and finding what your ebb and flow is with cool flowers, and if you're a vegetable grower, holy cow, I have a really good friend, Nikki Jabor. Nikki is in Nova Scotia in Canada. We met through speaking at conferences together. She's written probably 8 or 9 vegetable growing books. And one of them is Vegetable Gardening Year Round. And then she has had a new one that I cannot remember the name, Vegetable Gardening Undercover or something, I think. Check her out. It's Nikki Jabor, Jabbour, I think it is. But she's all over the internet. And if you want to learn more about those vegetables that I know for us here in southeastern Virginia, we can grow and be harvesting greens just about year round, just with hoops and row cover. So there's a lot to learn about cool season gardening, y'all. So put the brakes on warm. It's time to really embrace the cool season. So, we're doing a deep dive into cool flowers right now. And, for those of you that don't follow along with me, you may not know kind of what's happening around here. So I've been a commercial grower since 1998. And starting about 4 years ago, we knew that we were starting to take our pedal off of the commercial production part of our business. While my farm is a little less than 3 acres, and of that, only 1.5 acres has ever been in production, we still produce 10 to 15,000 stems of flowers a week. Oh gosh, that's a lot of flowers. A week in season. So that would have been like 5 months out of the year. And then the rest of the year we spent doing everything else that had to be done to be able to do that, right? Well, about 4 years ago, we decided that we were taking our foot off of that pedal and we were just going to cut back and cut back. And so about 4 years ago, we cut loose our supermarket chains and most of our florists, all but two, our two original ones. We serviced 2 supermarket chains, 23 florists. We did farmers markets also for 14 years. We had a bouquet subscription service, and then I had my on-farm private members only market. So we cut back down to 2 florists and our members only market and our bouquet subscription for the last 3 years. And then last year was our farewell season to those programs. And you might be saying, why in the world? Well, y'all, first off, Bobo and I have been doing this for a really long time, and we are ready to do all the things that people assume and think that we can do. But there's never been time to do those things. And case in point, a lot of test growing, a lot of testing stuff out in the field that I would have never taken the risk to do when I was relying on those flowers. And I'm going to share with you a great example that I just found just a few minutes before I came on here. So when you are committed to so many commercial customers as we were, and our weekly pickup customers, and our weekly drop-off customers, you have to produce a lot of flowers, right? So we never took risks. We very rarely introduced new flowers that just weren't tried and true. And so those are some of the things that we're actually moving into now. So our garden is actually becoming what we're calling the learning garden. It's based for our learning center, whether that means online course filming, resources, videos, tips, and just general information. And those are all things that just really are not available so last year we only serviced our members only market and our bouquet subscription. That meant we were still obligated to a couple of hundred people a week. That's a lot of pressure. And so I just can't tell you how freeing and actually a little, not frightening, it's just a whole different ballpark for Bobo and I for starting seeds. For instance, one thing you can see on the light on the shelves behind me, we're using our those new English trays that we now have that only hold 100 to 120 of the small blocks. We're not using our big trays that hold 240 because we aren't growing this enormous amount. We don't need a whole bed of one flower. We just need a 10 or 15 foot run, maybe, if even that much, to get good imagery and to harvest and to see what it's like. And so it's really pretty interesting. So case in point, when I was just out playing with Tucker, trying to wear him out a little bit before I did this, I was back looking at not where my cool flower garden is that you all have probably seen, but my back garden, which is where our peonies are. We have some kind of mixed things growing back there. I planted a ton of the giant poppy pods because, we do grow that seed. So we have a bunch in the cool flower garden, but we need as much as we can get because we don't want to sell out of the seed as happens. So I have some the poppy pods growing back there, but we also planted Campanula Champion, which is the Campanula that goes from seed to bloom in like 16 weeks, basically 4 months. It's not like the biennial ones that have to really have a lot of time in the garden. And I do bring that in. It's actually in Cool Flowers. And I buy that as a plug. It's a little bit more difficult to start from seed. It just needs some special handling. And, y'all, you soon learn when you become busy in business, there are some things you just shouldn't do anymore. It costs you more in time than it does to have bought them finished. And that's what we do with the Campanula Champion. So we have our Campanula back here. And I also, because I was going to buy those plugs to do another test, I thought, what other plugs do I want to buy? Well, I got Delphiniums. Delphiniums Pacific Giants. The belladonnas that are actually listed in the Cool Flower book are the easiest to start from seed, the belladonna series. Oriental is the name of it. And those are not easy, but they're the easiest delphiniums to start from seed. So while I was ordering this campanula, and I also got Lysianthus that we fall planted, I got I was going to say a bag, a plug tray of delphiniums, and we planted them out back in the back to kind of finish that garden off. Well, because Ami Magus actually grew in this area last year, and we let a lot of it just kind of go because the pollinators and the little teeny beneficial insects, a lot of the parasitic wasps really love those little dill-like flowers. So we left it, which that meant it reseeded. So I saw last fall where some had reseeded. Well, we left those plants there when we planted and mulched out there. We just decided to let them go. Well, I will tell you that this morning, and there's nothing back there is covered. I don't use any row covers back there. So this morning, you know, the Ami Magus that we planted this last fall out in the big cool flower garden, which has had row cover on it, on and off, depending on what the weather is, and it's suffering. Some of it looks, I'm sure we've lost some of it. Well, this Ami Magus back here that reseeded, that has not had any covers, guess what? It definitely sustained damage, but it's not dead. I took a picture of it actually this morning to make a note about it, that it'll definitely regrow and be a great one. So these are the kinds of experiments and observations and envelopes that we want to push around here. And I saw that somebody, if y'all have questions, just post them in the comments and I will come back and answer those at the end. But I did see it scroll by that somebody asked, you know, what's the future for the Gardener's Workshop? It's doing more of what I just talked about. We're still growing a giant garden, but we're not growing a giant garden of everything I need to make bouquets and to have for commercial growers. We're bringing in, you know, we're test growing. Bobo just finished starting a bunch of new stock colors that we're bringing in, all these straw flowers behind me, while they're already on the website in solid colors. This is the kind of stuff that, you know, we've just really not, because of my commitment to flower production, we have not been able to really embrace providing what we've been doing here for 25 years with you guys, as well as we could. So that's kind of what we're doing. And then here is another really cool project that's going on. So if you're my student, if you have been a student of my flower farming school, online, the basics, that's my course. My students, one of the bonuses that we've shared with them just a couple of months ago is a project that we've been working on for a long time. Something we've been developing and trying to figure out how to make it workable, doable. Y'all, you know what? You just don't, I had no idea the depth of technology, the problems, how things are just crazy. Nothing is simple. You know, it's like we get asked all the time, why don't we ship to Canada? It is so deep. And at this point, we just aren't able to take that in. But anyway, so this new project that we have, so we have been trying to find a way to allow growers and people that are growing cool flowers a way to report what they're experiencing with them, and to have it in a format that not only can we all contribute, but other people that are in the group can actually see what people are contributing. Does that make sense? It's like if I went in and posted today about my experience with the Ami Magus, it would be an entry and then that would be seeable by everyone that's in the group. So it's called, I had to write it down because I always screw up the name. It's called the Cool Flowers Field Report. And it's only for field growing, and that's pretty much why we have put it into my basics class. We are calling my students our beta group, and that's for any of my alumni, and that's for any of my students, however many thousands of you there are, have access to this through your course. You can enter in your experience about a specific cool flower, and you can see what other people are sharing in there. And it's just started, so it's not really a big, huge database at this point. And the reason this is so significant is because there is so little data available about Cool Season Hearty annuals. Who can grow what when? How can you grow them? What has your experience been? And so if you, and I'm saying this publicly because there's so many students that are like, oh, I didn't even know that was there. You know, we email it out to everybody saying, hey, there's something great and new in your course, but people are busy. So, you know, if you know a student, you need to tell them, did you know that you have access to this? They can't share it with you if you're not a student, but, you know, this is one of the things that we're going to be working on, this type of stuff. And, you know, maybe someday this will ultimately be a standalone, available beyond my course. But right now, it's just for my students. And we're super excited about it. And what I discovered about that AMI today, I mean, I don't know what that means, but I can put it in there for somebody, right? So I'm just looking at my notes. I'm going to look and see if there's any questions now, because that's kind of what this is really all about today. So I will show you. So we're just getting started with our cool season, cool flowers that we are doing for a very early spring planting, which, you know, is 6 to 8 weeks before your last spring frost. I only do transplants at this time of the year. It's not warm enough, early enough to be able to embrace the cool flower concept. So what we have going here now is these are all straw flowers, except this is some stock. I actually started this stock. When did I start this? Oh, there you go. So I started that on a YouTube live Saturday a week ago. And all the rest of these straw flowers, I just took this one off the heat this morning. You can see it's still just starting to crack, and these others have been a little bit later. And then I'll turn you around here. I'm actually going to take you off the stand. So I started the rest of the straw flowers after I break my neck on that. So this is my table. The sun's at the wrong place this morning, y'all. This is our giant Seedling Heat Mat, the wide weave burlap that we just lay down on the top. And so these are straw flowers that I started. You can see these are just starting to crack. These were started on the 23rd, so they're just starting up. And you can see this. So these are just starting to crack. Bobo just started all of these today. These are stock. That is not a plant, y'all. That's just debris. So this is all the new stock that she is starting today. And so they get watered in the morning, and this is where they live all day until 50% of them sprout, and that's when they get moved over here. This is my rack with the grow lights. You can find the grow lights on our website, and you can see we have a long way to go. So I am going to look back now and see if you guys have any questions, and I will answer them for you. I just recorded this morning, let me get out of that light, a new podcast for Saturday. And it's basically, I named it Running Through, Seed Starting Run Through. And I just kind of went through the steps because, you know, no matter how many times we hear it, all of a sudden one day, ding, the light bulb goes off. I totally understand that. So, you know, a lot of the information is repeated in different ways in different places, but we get constant requests for all that stuff. So check that out on Saturday morning. All right, so let's take a look. All right, let's see what we have here. And we see so many of our people from all over and lots of students. A lot of people in the South. And then there we are, oh my gosh, in New York, -14. Holy cow. I mean, we're holding our breath over having to face, the teens. They're saying it's going to be 13 here on Saturday. And we are just keeping our fingers crossed that we get the snow that they say is coming, because if we get snow and then it's that cold at night, the snow really protects. Because I have to really take down my row covers because they're forecasting snow. It's like a catch 2020, y'all. So we're just hoping that the darn snow comes. Hey, Mark. We have people from all over. Hello, Norfolk, Virginia. That's not far from me. Christy, I have all my seed starting stuff in one designated grow room in my house. It is the slightly elevated temperature that's so good for foliage growth, bad for cool flower seed germination on the mat? What a great question, Kristen. So what she's speaking of is what I say, that the air temperature that is best for cool flowers to germinate is 65 to 70 degrees air temperature. And that is because cool flower hardy annuals do best with warm soil on a seed starting mat with a cookie cooling rack underneath of it, with warm, that kind of warm to cool air temperature. But then as we move into warm season stuff, warmer is better. So it just really depends on what that number is, Christy. And if you find that you're having trouble with your cool season flowers germinating in there, I bet you could find a cooler place in your home, perhaps, like even a closet, right? I mean, if there's no heat vent in there, sometimes you can just really tweak it up. But that sounds like a good plan, and it's just for germination that I would think that would be a problem. Elizabeth is asking, can you tell us what cool flowers you're starting at this point? So, again, I'll tell you what I would be starting, because we're not starting like we would have been last year and for 23 years before that, because we're not doing production. But what we would be starting at this point in time would be Bupleurum, which we do 6 sessions of that. We do it in fall also. Bupleurum, Lambada, Feverfew, lots of Sweet William. And the Sweet William variety, just like that Campanula I just mentioned a minute ago, people see Campanula and then they start looking at all these different kinds of Campanulas, and they oftentimes are what are called true biennials, meaning they need a much longer growing time. The same thing is true with Dianthus. There are so many different Dianthus. The series that I'm speaking of that you can start now and it grows from seed to bloom in 16 weeks is the Amazon series. It only comes in 3 colors: rose, cherry, and purple, sorry. And then they have one that's called the Duo or something. Well, that's just a mix of 2 of those. And they are excellent. They are essential for commercial customers and for bouquet making. We start them in the fall. They're super winter hardy for us. But then we start them again. I would have started them 1st of January and then started them about once a month. They will take more heat. But as we move into summer, I often get asked, how do you stretch out the blooms? Well, we don't worry about trying to stretch stuff out, because once the warm season stuff starts blooming, our customers are ready to move away from the cool season stuff. So we just try to have it as long as we can under reason. And Sweet William is one of those that definitely, the Sweet William Amazon series, we would be starting. So I don't remember what I said now. Feverfew, Lambada. We grow 6 different Feverfews. They all have great different looks and different uses. I mean, we just love the heck out of them. Sweet William, Amazon series, and we do not fall plant stock or straw flowers. They are borderline winter hardy here. And so I just don't even mess with them. And we don't need to, because they do fabulous with a very early spring. So we start a lot of stock, a lot of straw flowers. Just thinking what else would, and we do, I don't start them from seed, but we plant Lysianthus again. We bring in plugs. So we can plant all of these that I mentioned in very early spring, which is for us mid-February. Of course, those places that they're going to be planted should have been prepared last fall because it's too wet, too frozen, and even snow covered when it comes time to plant. So you have to pre-think that out and do that in the fall, and it just sits there ready and waiting. Of course, you're preventing weeds from growing by using either Bio 360 or covering with a silage tarp, whatever you need to do to keep that spot ready to receive these plants. So what we have found is, and calendula, that's another one that Bobo is starting today. And we start calendula actually in plug trays, not in soil blocks, just because the seed's a funky shape and they just do really well that way. Y'all, I'm not a purist at anything. We use whatever method is best. If it's soil blocking, then we soil block. But if it's plug trays, we use plug trays. You know I plug tray sunflowers, right? Well, we also do that for calendula. So while every flower that's in Cool Flowers could technically be planted again in very early spring, we have found, as being in the South basically, that not all of them do as well. They really benefit from that long winter getting established. When we plant them in very early spring, they just don't perform very well. Stuff like bells of Ireland, they just don't get tall enough. We get crummy stem length and they fall victim to disease really quickly. We used to plant snaps in very early spring as well as in our fall, in addition to our fall. But guess what? Our fall planted snaps outperformed our very early spring. So there's really no reason for us to plant them. And the very early spring always fell victim to rust. Never have had that happen to fall planted snaps. So you can technically plant all of those again, but it's one of those things where you can do that, but should you do that? And you have to figure that out for yourself and for where you are. We found, for instance, that rudbeckias, we grow a lot of rudbeckias, and we plant them in the fall. They're winter hardy to zone 5, so many of us can fall plant them. When we planted them again in very early spring, guess what? They ended up kind of blooming almost at the same time as fall, yet they weren't as tall and they weren't as abundant. However, I will add, our struggle is that we really want rudbeckias at the end of the summer going into fall. So I think you can plant rudbeckias later, but not so much in very early spring to try to achieve that. However, rudbeckias are day length sensitive, I believe. I don't know that to be true. I haven't really investigated that. But you have to get them started, I would think, in, early in your summer, spring, that kind of window of opportunity. So I see that one of the team members has posted, thank you so much for the reminder, to please like and share this broadcast with your flower friends and in your flower groups. This is what keeps us doing that. When you like and comment on my broadcast, that makes Facebook show our stuff to more new people. And that's what we want to do. We want to have more and more members coming into our group. So we really appreciate you doing that, and it really, really helps us. Charlotte says, I'm interested in planting lettuce this year. Plant as Cool Flowers correct when soil gets warm. Most varieties with hoops and row covers. So Charlotte, I can't remember where you are, but so I would start it for sure inside. We always used small soil blocks, and you can even put more than one seed in a block, and then plant them out in little rows. And I would hoop and cover them because you want to encourage them to grow, but they love the cool, cold weather. And, I have a friend that grows a lot of lettuce, and she's out of touch right now. But I would say that following Nikki Jabor, my friend and vegetable grower in Nova Scotia, she has perfected all of that. I think you would really love connecting with her, but she could really comment more to that. But I would think planting transplants out following the 6 to 8 weeks before your last frost is the ticket if you want to do lettuce, as well as spinach and all of those guys, kale. So Tom, I think I already answered what the long range goals for TGW are. Is we are just more about, instead of being a production garden farm, a flower farm, we are finding ways to bring what we've done all these years to more people, to embrace other people. Because here's the bottom line, friends. We need more professional domestic cut flower growers, meaning people that are doing it in such a way that the commercial world can connect with you and buy from you. And that also is also for the end retail user through bouquet subscriptions. And there are people that are hungry for this stuff. But you have to really kind of bring yourself up to a professional level. Just means in your production, being consistent, growing the right stuff, learning how to talk, learning how to sell, learning how to find your customers. So that is really what we are kind of embarking on. And I haven't ever really said this before, but the farm next, is me and another farm here in the middle of the city. It was the two of us against, not against, but left. And when that farm was sold and is now developed with 90 houses, when we knew all of that was coming, that's when I was forced mentally to make a decision of I could not obligate myself or the people that helped me to stand out in that field and cut flowers 5 days a week and do everything else you have to do for flowers 5 days a week and watch them rip the earth apart and tear apart what we have been loving and enjoying and killing so much stuff. And that's what pushed me to pursue other avenues of what we've learned and to benefit from that. Charlotte, the delphinium, I could never keep those alive and grow. I finally gave up. Well, Charlotte, the secret is, I can't remember again where you are, but delphiniums for us that live in zones 9, 8, and even 7 sometimes, that have hot summers and humidity, it is our summers that typically take delphiniums out. The disease and pest pressure is more, they just fall victim and just slowly die off. We treat them, even though they are perennials in New England, they are not perennials here on my farm in Virginia. We plant them as cool flowers. They're winter hardy up to zone 3, So, everybody could fall plant them. But, of course, if you're zone 3, 4, and 5, you grow them as perennials in 6. The rest of us can fall plant them as a cool season hardy annual. They get well established. All of June is full of gorgeous delphiniums. I haven't grown them since we've been in high production. It's probably been 10 years since I've grown big delphiniums. So we're really anxious about that. But we know that there'll be dust by August. We won't even try to get them to move over. We'll depend and see how they did because, this is an experimental time. So that's what our goal is. We just want the bloom. So we grow them as a hardy annual as we do so many other things. So give that a whirl. Laurie, missed fall planting poppies, thinking I might try direct seeding out this week. Too late, Norfolk, Virginia. Laurie, I think I'd save my seeds because you can sow them. They won't germinate for a long time. They need, 60-degree days for a couple weeks to actually germinate. So think about when that's going to happen. And then heat and humidity is right around the corner. I think you might be better to paper clip that seed packet to your, September calendar, and then you'll be reminded. That's what I tell people. You can surely try it, but let me tell you what happens for most people. First off, it's not going to probably be successful. It's very discouraging. It tends to make people think that doesn't work when they didn't even really test it right, and they get just so discouraged. So, that's just my 2 cents worth. So I see somebody's asking, y'all are talking amongst yourself. Second question. Last year, my last frost in Norfolk was April 10th. This year, it's March 20th. With the snow lately, I'm nervous about the March 20th date. Your thoughts? So, Lori, that's why I constantly try to say your historic last frost date. That's not this year's date or last year's date. That is the classic. If you were to look up last frost date and they ask you to put in your zip code, typically the information that comes up from the USDA looks over several years because it's changing all the time. So I wouldn't look at that March 20th date either. I would look up your historical last spring frost, and that's why I say that. No, there is no perfect way to figure that out, and that's just the way life is, you know? So you just do the best you can and pick a date and go with it. Cat, I can't find the plug tray instructions for Bupleurum, and should my Monardo not be on the heat mat? It isn't showing any signs of germination. Stock and feverfew and Amazon Sweet William look amazing. So, Cat, there's the Bupleurum. How I grow Bupleurum in plug trays is in two places. One, if you're my student, it's in the course under starting seeds, I think, cool season, you know. I can't remember exactly which session, but it's in your course. The other place that it's not a video, the video's in my course. The other place that I put a blow-by-blow, step-by-step is if you join my private Facebook group called The Flower Farmer Show. It is actually in there, and you can find that over there. And if you want to join The Flower Farmer Show, you just have to request to join, and that group is for people that are or want to become flower farmers. Kristen, I planted year-old straw seeds 2 weeks ago. I only have a couple sprouts on soil block trays. Are the seeds dead? And I did just post somewhere else. I can't even remember where it was this morning. Straw flowers are definitely one of the seeds that we find that you got to have fresh seeds, just like larkspur. You can't, from one year to another, you might as well plant them all because you shouldn't hold them to the next year. Although we do succession plant straw flowers once a month for several more months, because straw flowers definitely need to be fresh. And I will say that because straw flowers are in our top 10 seeds that we sell, which means they are constantly being bulk ordered and packaged, that means that we have a constant flow of fresh seeds. So do not sit on straw flower seeds at all. Thank you for sharing that you have had seed failures. I always feel like it's just me. Oh, Brandy. There are so many seed failures. We still have them today. I mean, we screw stuff up. If Bobo and I could just stand here and share the seed starting woes we've had each season, it would fill an hour. So stuff just happens. Things change. You don't remember. You don't do it the same way. Varmints come in, you know, whether it's mice or what have you, or birds, it happens. Good morning. Just curious what the average temp is now in your grow room. 68 when I checked it. I only have my coat on because I just came in from outside and I just didn't peel it off. And I have the door open. When the door is shut in here, it's about 68 degrees is what I'm aiming for. And you're welcome. Christy, I started Lizzie's in soil blocks. They are up, and I'm wondering, what do I do next? Oh, you are a lucky girl. So Lizzie Anthus, typically most of us don't start from seed. It's just because it takes so long. And so they definitely need a 65 to 70 air temperature to grow on. And you treat them like everything else. You feed them once a week, keep the gnats off of them, let them dry out in between waterings. Because Lizzie Anthus are very predisposed to root rot. Overwatering is a number one problem people suffer from with soil blocks. And so just water thoroughly, and you want those blocks to be dry the next morning. And if they're not, you got to figure out what you have to do to make that happen. Where would I find grow racks like yours? Well, the lights that are on there you'll find at thegardenersworkshop.com. And these are just those metal rolling racks that you'll often see in the big box stores, even though they're in short order right now with the, supply chain screw up stuff. When do I bump them up and to what? Thank you. Christy's asking about those soil blocks. That's the reason I don't do this. They really could stay in that small soil block until they're big enough because their roots are not that aggressive. But the question is, will the soil blocks hold up? So if you You know, putting them in a plug tray ruins the whole benefit of soil blocks. So it would either be a 2-inch block or a plug tray. You'll just have to decide. I don't know how many you have. If you don't have many, I'd do 2-inch soil blocks. But if you have hundreds, you're going to have to do plug trays. Can you please show us the lights set up behind you, how they are connected? So my entire room that we're standing in actually has a timer, which I will show you. That's what that thing right there is. That was a Christmas present about 7 years ago from my husband. I mean, it was like $1,500 to have an electrician install that in here and install tons of new plugs over there. In place of me using, I mean, I had so many little individual, the timers that we sell. As I drop and break it. I had a bazillion of these. This is the one that we sell. We sell a timer because this is a grounded plug, which our lights require. Oftentimes the ones you find in the store don't have ground on them. They're made for like lamps, right? So I had probably about 15 of these plugged in this room. And I had enough plugs, but it was just a nightmare, as you can imagine. Then I learned about the timer. So this entire room, well, not the entire room, I'm sorry, I take that back. That timer is attached to 3, 6, 9, 12, to 12 different 4-gang plugs. So that means that I don't have to have this. I can just plug my lights directly into those plug boxes that are connected to that timer. So that timer does what this does. And then our lights can be plugged into each other. So that means that this light is plugged into this light, is plugged into that light, is plugged into the next light, and then that light is plugged into the wall. That just allows you, it's kind of like Christmas tree lights, and they're made to have 4 hooked together. And this room, the lights come on at 6 a.m. and go off at 10 p.m. Oh, so good question, Naomi. Have you tried the Sweet series of Sweet William? Yes. So Sweet, I did grow for several years. Sweet is for sure. The battle with Sweet is too short. So we only fall planted it. I need to give it the maximum amount of time to get established so we get the best possible abundance out of that plant. Our struggle with Sweet every year, I mean, we loved it. There's a salmon color, there's white. I mean, that's the $1 million color. If Amazon had white, I would be a happier person about life in general. White is priceless, but the challenge always was to get it tall enough. So we would never very early spring plant it where I am. But Sweet is definitely, we're actually bringing that back to our lineup on our online store. So Sweet is a good one, and it blooms from seed to bloom within 16 weeks. But again, the struggle is getting it tall enough. And it's not got as big a head, but it has great, great colors. If you sow Sweet William now, will they flower this year? So that brings us back to the question that I addressed earlier, is that the specific series that I speak of, Amazon, blooms from seed to bloom in 16 weeks. It is not the biennials that Karen is actually speaking of there. Wish you sold Lizzie Anthus plugs. Oh my gosh, don't even say that out loud. My team is probably, their noses are probably twitching right now, thinking of what do they need to slap me for. Shipping plants is a nightmare, and I mean the greenhouses do such a great job. Occasionally, mishaps happen, but overall, the gazillions that they ship out, they really do a good job of it. And that is nothing. I don't say never very often, but I can pretty assuredly say I will never be shipping plants. All right. So we do have the Amazon series Dianthus seed on our website if anybody needs that. All right, y'all, I got to get off here. The ordinary variety will not. I started mine so there is no ordinary variety. There's probably 100 different Dianthus varieties. And so, yeah, that's why you have to have a little bit of, you got to do more than just buy seeds. So I'm just trying to see if there's any more questions. All right, y'all. Lisa, do you keep your cool? Do I keep my cool? Not always. I know people of Bells of Ireland, but do you have issues with thorns on the variety you grow? Hi from Norfolk neighbor. Hello, Norfolk. Norfolk is right across the creek from me, or better known as the Chesapeake Bay. It's only one variety of bells. We're all growing the same one. And yes, they do develop thorns, but our goal, because we do field grow them, which means we're always at risk when rain comes of spreading and encouraging the bacterial spot on bells. That's the little rusty spots that they get, and like overnight it moves. It's like the measles, y'all. So we are always looking to cut Bells of Ireland the minute it gets tall enough. We start using it. And what we've learned, we never even knew they really had thorns for several years because we used it so early in the stage. As soon as it gets 24 inches, we're whacking it. We never let it sit. And then when I went to pull some out one day that got bacterial spot, so I just kind of abandoned it, but we had to pull it out. When we went back, it was covered in thorns. So I would say that is a timing of when you're actually using it. So friends, Bobo, what time is it? It's 8 till. So yeah, so we've been on here for almost an hour. It's lunchtime around here, which is a pretty important time. I'm so glad to have Bobo back here starting seeds, taking, I've been doing it. I just can't get it all done because I'm busy talking to people, right? So it's great to have her just come and take care of all of it. So I'm going to answer Alyssa's last one here. I'm in zone 3A, 4B, short growing season of about 120 days. First time soil blocking this spring. I'm wondering your thoughts about starting most of my seeds in the 1.5 inch block and planting them out of there instead of the 3/4 and bumping up to the 2 inch. First off, I have to take this coat off. I'm really getting hot. So that's a great question. And when I saw what it was is why I wanted to go ahead and take it, even though we're out of time, is part of the reason that I attribute my great success with soil blocking is it is so much easier to control the moisture and the warmth in that little 3/4 inch block. And what we find with the bigger block with a little teeny seed on top of it, whether it's the 1.5 or the 2 inch, you run into that problem again. It's moist on the bottom and dry on the top, or vice versa. I mean, we start tomatoes in 3/4 inch, we start peppers, we start all of our plants in that small block. And I know that you are trying to get the largest transplant you can. It really depends on, you'll have to try it first off. You have to try it with your setup and see what happens. This is what I hear from people, and this is what our experience has been. If it's a bigger seed, it works great. But when you start trying, let's just say, for instance, it's celosia, that little teeny seed that looks like pepper, that is very difficult to get strong, good, healthy germination on the top of a big plop of soil, So that is the danger. I would say try it. I understand what you're trying to do, but I also think that the other part of this that a lot of people don't get, and you can go to our website. I posted in Instagram, like last week or something, a series of a bunch of seedling pictures. And you can see how big, we grow 4-inch gorgeous celosias in the small block. Most people don't realize how big of a plant you can actually grow in the small block when you time it right and give it the great conditions that they need. So I would be willing to say that's what I'd be experimenting with, is how much can I push, just like I did, the 3/4 inch to get the biggest I can in the 3/4, so you don't have to go through all that bumping up. That's a lot of blocking mix. That's a lot of labor. And only bump those things you absolutely have to. I would think, in my mind, things you would really have to bump would be eucalyptus if you're growing that. That's such a darn slow grower. But all the rest of them, I would definitely experiment with getting them to 4 weeks old in a great environment. That's how I get 5-inch gorgeous celosias, 4 weeks in a 3/4 inch block. So that's my advice to you, Alyssa. So, all right, folks. So Saturday, I do a YouTube live at 11 a.m. If you don't know about my YouTube channel, you can check me out over there. Please subscribe and please share that with your friends. And then, you can always catch me on Ask a Flower Farmer on Instagram Wednesdays at 11:30 Eastern Time. And then for our personalized chat at 1 o'clock on Clubhouse. So friends, till we meet again, and I posted this morning, I'm a little afraid to go into snow this weekend with all these seeds and blocks and trays here. I hope I don't start too much stuff. I already have too much stuff for the space that I have. This is a confession. Oh well. Ciao.